What is up? Wanted to do a little playoff chat about here. Talk about the first round of the playoffs and what to expect next. Just a quick little banger here. Wanted to, make sure, we covered some bases on some things. So, just looking at the games first and foremost, we had our eight playoff teams. Obviously, we see the results here. Ryan just laying the absolute beatdown on Rock Boys. Rock Boys with a pretty respectable score. They beat one, two, three, four, five other teams in a league, so just kind of unfortunate. Couldn't have one more win to secure himself a better playoff position to go against one of these teams that took an L. But pretty interesting that the two, three, and four seeds all lost. Some pretty eventful games here as well. Some controversial endings, some might say, that could lead to potential prompts for rule changes moving forward. But to look at Ryan's matchup here, I mean, pretty much just run of the mill. Devontae Adams said, I got you in the second half, put up 200 yards and two touchdowns and a half of football. All this 44.8 points were done in the second half. Lamar with a Jackson 5 against the Giants. And, Jerry Judy's really asserted himself into a potential league winner. Even Brian Thomas on the bench, can't really say I blame him for putting him there, but another really, really good player that could definitely find himself in the rotation. And no one really stunk. Everyone got what they needed to get to around or projected to be. And obviously a 177 is going to be a great position to put you in to get a win. Looking at Josh's squad, obviously the 2 points from Tua. Kirk didn't really help much on the bench. But even if you get a big quarterback performance, 30, 40, even 40 points, it's not going to be enough. So you can't kick your, it's not like you lost by point two and you're trying to find where you missed points. Um, but yeah, CeeDee Lamb, great game. Jerome Ford, great game. That ended up kind of being a little bit lucky with Chubb going down and Jerome Ford getting all the touches and with all the turnovers and everything, just kind of a weird game. Bengals defense obviously should have had two touchdowns, only got one. Again, you're not missing much there just with a score this big, but a lot of really solid performances. Other than Tua, everyone else kind of did what they were supposed to, or around what they were supposed to, or extremely exceeded. So, good showing, Josh. Good effort. Just kind of ran into the wrong team here, and that's why trying to capitalize on all your games makes a lot of sense and is necessary. So. Uh, not having the mindset of like, oh, I can afford to lose this week, might not always be the right path. As we see with our two seed Ed, who lost to the seven seed, the Milkman, who got healthy in the last month or so with Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill starting to play better with Tua. Uh, didn't do much this week, but yeah, just kind of got the team healthy. Allen's been on a warpath. He crushed me for 50 last week and then 43 this week. Um, you know, kind of stinks, looking at this from Ed's perspective. His overall team played a lot better than the Milkman's team, but Milkman just had some really crazy performances from the Chiefs defense, which is something that Ed highlighted to me that he would like to see us if we wanted to do some revision on some defensive scoring in the offseason. I would certainly be down to do so. I think getting 20 points from a defense is a little crazy. I know we have a few teams that did it this week, but then you look at it, six turnovers and only 7 points given up. It kind of warrants a big score, so I'm not against, so it's kind of a weird spot, right? I'm for just getting rid of defenses personally, but I can understand wanting to push down the scoring a little bit, just to let the players shine more, but that's something we can debate in the offseason. Nonetheless, really good play there by Zach getting the Chiefs defense in there with the Eagles sitting on the bench. That's a game-winning decision right there. Chase Brown's been awesome. Picked a really good late round flyer there from the Milkman. Really solidified his RB room. And three big performances and a little bit here and there from different parties. Gets the job done, getting a 129 score. Again, looking at Ed's here, I mean, Daniels, Gibbs, Achane, McLaurin. I mean, everyone did well. Shakir was good. McConkey was good. The Bowers of it all is kind of not concerning, but perplexing, I would say. Obviously, if Huggins another on the bench, he starts, he wins, but Bowers has been tight end one all year. And it was just very interesting watching that game, the last couple of drives that where the Raiders had the ball and were moving. Uh, they just threw. They didn't run the ball once, and they didn't even target Bowers a single time. He was just running cardio out there. Um, so, which is kind of weird with your best offensive option not even getting a look. So that's a little interesting. Unfortunate for it. Obviously, all he needed was one catch for -2 yards, and he wins. That's going to get you point 0.3 points, but couldn't find it. And unfortunately, his really strong roster and his season is over. And moving on for the Milkman, who's our reigning champion, all of a sudden looking to make a poised run for a back-to-back shot. Our other close game here, our 3 seed Team Coleman versus the Risky Dipper. Dipper getting in the playoffs last week with a win against the Rock Boys. So again, that result flips. Josh finds a way to win that game. Josh is moving on to the next round this week. So it just goes to show you again, kind of luck of the draw there. Scoring your points, having a good team really goes a long way. And Baker Mayfield, great performance. Again, nothing crazy with these scores. Um, you're going to lose a lot of games in a lot of cases, putting up low hundreds like this. But Montgomery obviously getting hurt for the Lions was the difference maker in this game. If he puts up a relatively closer performance to anything that he's done this season, I mean even 6.5, that's an extra point that wins, right? And they lost by 0.5. So, if he does matches his worst performance of the year or does anywhere close to what he's typically doing, um, Tyler wins this game relatively easily. Obviously, Broncos defense keeps him in there. And yeah, I mean, Mahomes kind of is a struggle part, right? Like you're not getting we saw Ryan get 40, Zach get 43, Mike got 34 from his quarterback, and Mahomes this year just hasn't been putting up the big numbers. No tight end, and then the obvious glaring roster decision that was made to start Rico Dowdle over James Cook. Clearly, you're not like, okay, Dowdle, 16 points, that's pretty solid, right? Like, you'll be happy with that in most cases. Just thinks to see that James Cook was benched and put up almost 30. I get his snaps have gone down, his target share has gone down, all that. So I can understand the logic behind that. But at the same time, it's, playoffs are a time to rely on your guys that got you there. And I would certainly say James Cook is one of those guys for him. So I know he's going to kick himself for that. For a long while, tight end position for this team continues to be continued, I should say, as season's over, to be a tough spot with only getting 3.4 out of Otten. But yeah, I don't want to say roster mismanagement, but I will because he won't watch this pod anyway. So I will. I don't know what we're doing starting Dowdle there in any scenario. I'm not in the playoffs, so what do I get the right to say anything? But that just seems like an overthinking kind of decision, looking at it from an objective standpoint. Again, Mike, just no. I mean, other than the Chargers defense and Nick Folk, everyone else did what they were supposed to do for the most part. And obviously Baker bringing it home, getting a big score up, and helping the guys move to the next round. Should be interesting to see what Mike does. His team is pretty swingy, but he puts up over 100 pretty much every week, in the 120, 130 range of points. So certainly can give any team a run for their money. So congrats, Mike. Last one here, blowout. Team Bucher, our number 4 seed, losing to the 5 seed, Moody White Johnson. Yeah, I mean, Team Bucher just really, I mean, probably looking at it objectively without scores next to him, probably the most full roster in our league. Um, and it's really unfortunate Purdy gives them nothing. And 118 is a solid score, but yeah, nobody boomed, nobody had a crazy, crazy game. Like we saw a lot of high scoring matchups this week and a lot of big fantasy scores. So yeah, just kind of unfortunate running into it a little bit with the Moody White because again, 18.7 is going to beat out one, well, actually only 2 other teams. So, but just a big scoring week this week in fantasy in general. Sometimes we see weeks where only a couple teams crack 100. So, just big week for everyone involved. But Moody White putting up a monster score, led by the Lions. Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown combined for what 85, 86 points. Then you just need a little bit of contribution. Malik Neighbors late touchdown against the Ravens. Jackson Smith and Jigba has been phenomenal the last month or so, month and a half. And that's all he needed. Rashad White, Vultures a touchdown. Bucky Irving played a little bit, had a pretty solid game, but Rashad White just continues to get receptions and red zone touches. And down game from Saquon and still putting up 160. I think you'll take that. So really fearing lineup here from the Moody White. Not an easy matchup for whomever grabs him in the next round. Just with the collaboration of young talent and the boom potential in this lineup, right? Like Amon-Ra, Smith and Jigba, Barkley, Neighbors can all go off for 30 points pretty easily. So you got to bring your A game if you're playing this team. So really good win here for the Moody White, and just unfortunate, finish to the season for Bucher. Just kind of one of those years where teams were having their best weeks against you, and there's not much you can do about that. So going here to the playoff bracket, we have Ryan versus the Moody White. I should say JD Vance favored by 22, which is really big number, but understandably so that the couch has been putting up some gaudy numbers. So, we'll see. Looking at this, obviously Lamar is having a great year statistically, and the team's record hasn't been as good as it has been in years past, but definitely his best statistical season of ever. Going against the Steelers, we'll see if TJ Watt plays. If Watt does not play, I think it's a field day for Lamar. That's how good Watt is. If Watt plays, I think this is within a lower scoring typical Ravens Steelers game. And so we'll just see the asserting of Josh Jacobs on Monday night against the Saints is going to be, I expect, a big game. Detroit's rush defense is really poor, so we'll see Swift get what he typically gets. He'll probably get in the 10 to 12 range, which is good. Jefferson Adams really been moving. Obviously, Jefferson's phenomenal. Devontae's really been great this year, especially out of late. I think he scored 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. McBride's been great for not scoring. I think he has a huge game Sunday. I think Kyler forces the ball to him a few times in the red zone and in the end zone to get him some touchdowns, because it's pretty crazy that you have the numbers that he has without a receiving touchdown. Jeudy, like I said, probably winning type of player to have, really asserting himself late, and then some decent bench options there to respond. So just a really full, strong lineup here moving into the week with some pretty favorable matchups against some pretty bad defenses. So I can understand why he's projected to get 135. Looking at the Moody White, pretty much going to get the same lineup you got last week. You know, pretty a little bit tougher matchups across the board here. I think Saquon has a huge day. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions guys have big days too. Smith and Jigma may see a step back just against the tough Minnesota defense, but he's getting a lot of targets. So as long as Geno plays, I think he'll put up good numbers. Neighbors seems to be matchup proof at this point. So 115 feels a little disrespectful on the projection. I could definitely see this roster getting closer to 125, 130, but I could also see the couch getting over 150 again. So, it's going to be interesting to see, right? But it's kind of hard and kind of insane to think about picking against Ryan at this point. Clearly the hottest, best rostered team going on right now for us in our league. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Ryan to win this game and move on to the championship round. And, really strong season from the Moody White. If he loses this game, season's not over. You play for third place next week. Our other game is the I almost said the wrong team. The Insurance Boys Bowl here, and we'll probably get us again. We have some roster moves made by the Milkman, I see, and Mike's gonna probably throw out relatively the same guys. So, I mean, no Charbonnet since Walker's probably gonna be back this week. But that being said, this projection probably feels about right. Just kind of eyeballing it here. Josh Allen's been going crazy the last 2 weeks. Does he have another monster performance in him? We shall see. Or do we see a little bit of regression, or does he finally lock up the MVP with worse stats than Lamar, but that's a conversation for another day. ETN against the Raiders, I think that's probably a good spot. Chase Brown is matchup proof, touchdown uh, inbound, if not two. Tyreek Hill, we'll see what we get. Cooper Kupp against the Jets, probably have more than 0 points than he like last week, unlike last week. So yeah, Ridley against Indy. They don't. Well, Mason Rudolph's playing, so he'll probably have a decent game. Indy's defense is pretty subpar against receivers, so should be a good game there for Ridley. And yeah, so that looks pretty strong there. Looking at Mike's roster here, that Dallas defense, a little Jekyll and Hyde, but you can definitely throw on him. So Baker, expect to have another day. Bijan should go off. Buffalo cannot stop the run either, so Ramondre certainly could have a good game. Collins and Zay, two guys that are going to just give you a lot of targets, and we'll see where those targets end up being yardage and touchdown wise. Freiermuth against the Ravens, Freiermuth has definitely been targeted a lot lately. Scored a couple touchdowns past few weeks. At the right time for Mike here. Metcalf, I'm not a big Metcalf guy, so I'm never going to think he's going to have a good game. He could go off for 30. He could have 5. We don't know. Got the defense in there for tonight's game. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really tight game. I think this projection is even too big of a spread. I could see this being a 1 or 2 point game, honestly. This is pretty even across the board here. I'm going to give it to the Milkman, though. The reason being, I just see more touchdowns on that side of the field comparatively to Mike's spots and the key spots like Chase Brown, Cooper Kupp, Hunter Henry, Calvin Ridley. I can see all those guys scoring, where I think there's a little bit more difficulty of finding the end zone for some of Mike's guys. So for that's going to be the difference, I think, here. So yeah, but I'm going to give it to Zach in a really, really tight game. So that would mean that we'd have the Milkman versus the Couch in the finals. And then that would mean for our third place game, we'd have the Risky Dipper versus the Moody White. So I think these are really good games. And like I've said before this year, stop sharing the screen there, but I've said before this year, this has felt like the most even our league has ever been. Usually we have a couple teams that are well above everyone else's, at least in the regular season, and then a few that are just well below in the regular season. But even the teams that missed the playoffs, myself included, I just missed it by a hair. Um, it, I mean, Justin's team came on really strong. Was NC's team had some weeks and Nate's team had some weeks. So there was never like a clear, guaranteed win in our league. So it made it pretty fun, right? And I think you're seeing some of that carry over into the playoffs to where we're getting upsets. We're getting teams finding ways to win and putting up good scores when they haven't necessarily done that on a consistent basis. So yeah, it's been fun. Just wanted to get some info out, and yeah, so probably just other information wise, if there are, like we did last year, if there's anything you'd like to see voted on as a rule change, I know roster size has been mentioned to me, maybe taking away that extra roster spot we added, maybe adding a second IR spot instead would be better served, make the free agent pool a little bit better, make waiver order more important, things like that. And obviously defensive scoring we just touched on, and just any other thing that you could think of that you see that you'd like to reevaluate. One thing I think would be cool that my other league does is for kicking points, you actually base it off of the yardage, not necessarily just between 30 and 39, where it's a flat 3, 4, 5. It's if it's a 37 yarder, it's 3.7, stuff like that. So that's an interesting perspective. Could shift makes kickers more valuable, I suppose, but could shift the paradigm of a 1 or 2 point loss into a win for some teams and vice versa. So just something to think about. Again, anything else, just let me know. I'll write it down, send a poll out at the end of the year and get it voted on. And yeah, but if you haven't paid Brian, I think there's a few who have not. Please do so, just so when whoever wins and whoever gets paid out can get their money right away. That would be great. That's why Ryan's in charge, so the money does get out right away. But yeah, so other than that, good luck to everyone this weekend. And if you have any other leagues that you're in that you're fighting for playoff spots or not fighting for playoff spots, but fighting for a championship game, Best of luck to you. Love to see everyone succeed and make some money in this fantasy world. All right. See ya.